welcome to another edition of What the Fuck Happenings here in Mendham. Yes, that's the channel name. Also have a website called Do Not God. Had a YouTube channel called Do Not God, but they exterminated it. But anyway, yes, that's what the names I publish under. So if you'd like to address me, it really should be. You use that name. That's the polite thing to do. Anyway, yes, people. So there was some comments. One that comes up now and then is, I thought it worth bringing up. How would an antinatalist future come into fruition? Blah, 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 blah. Won't even bother with the rest of it. It just has to do with this, we have an economic system that's completely dependent on, more and more people and all this kind of crap. And obviously you can mitigate against those problems. You just create new systems of financing. I mean, it's, it's hardly a terrible thing to realize that it's pretty disgusting, that people get old, and they turn into vampires. And they suck the blood out of their children, to stay alive. Maybe that's not a great idea. So maybe we should have a more sustainable economic system and just tweak a few things. And that's all it takes. A couple of little turns of the dials and everything changes. And so here we are sitting in a world where right now the dials were turning, in the 90s and the 2000s. The dials started turning really dramatically in a very positive direction, in the sense that most people were figuring out before they were, the age of consent, the age of making really dumb mistakes, that the dumb mistake they don't want to make is having kids. That they don't want the financial responsibilities and the social responsibilities, and they don't want to go to PTA meetings, and they don't really want to bother voting in those stupid school board elections and worrying about blah, 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 and all this other, is somebody beating up my kid? Do I have to go beat up some guy because his kid's a bully? And do I have to go through all this horse shit? And they realize they really don't want to be parents. I mean, it's not a fun job or something. They realize it's kind of, it's all on you, You can't be reckless anymore. You can't have any fun anymore. You can't waste any money. You can't do anything. You're confined into this little box of jackass if you do anything. You're just, I whacked the kid because he pissed me off. Well, oh, shit. Prison sentence. Who knows? Oh, I've forgotten. Left the kid in the car. Oh, now I'm in big trouble. Who wants all these liabilities? I didn't want kids because, I figured out pretty early that I'm kind of difficult to manage. And that it seems to me to be kind of a lot of work to have to watch what I'm doing and all this other stuff and be responsible and blah, blah, blah. And I said, I don't want to be responsible for something. I don't want to have to rush it to the emergency room and do this and do that, all this crap. I don't want all these jobs. And I don't find kids fascinating. I really didn't. I wasn't like Mr. Social even back then, in the sense that what are other people good for? They just get in the way most of the time. I mean, they're only fun if you're going to, play some contest and you can destroy them completely and mock them as being inferior or something. But what other use do they have? So anyway, these are all statements, okay? So I wasn't in any way an anti-natalist. I was just clearly had no interest in having children and saw nothing but liability and worry and work. So why would I have one? And anyway, so the social dynamic was at least half the people now have that attitude or something like it. They have some attitude that says, I don't really need this problem. I don't need the 20-year commitment and maybe even longer. I don't need the drama, lots of drama, you're dating the wrong person, this is going on, is the kid drinking on the side, is he going to smoke cigarettes, is this going to happen, is that going to happen, who wants, who but somebody addicted to like soap operas would want to invite the soap opera? Why do I want all this intrigue and bullshit? Why can't I just sit and watch some TV and have some potato chips and, there's just no advantage. And then all the disadvantages to it, whatever you had as a relationship with something called a woman or a man, you're having some sort of romantic thing. I mean, if Romeo and Juliet had gone to the step of having kids, wouldn't it have been a really shitty story? I mean, even shittier than dying. I mean, frankly, where was it going to go? Married with Children, right? I mean, it starts off as Romeo and Juliet, and it just turns into Married with Children. But even Married with Children is kind of a romantically nice vision of family life, right? Because they're all cynical, so it doesn't matter. Nobody has to take anything. Nobody has any real responsibility, so it doesn't seem as Borgish. But clearly, the average family life is an incredible Borg. You're obligated to wake up. You're obligated to do this. You're obligated, Who wants all the obligations? So anyway, so we're already winning in the sense that having kids is, to anybody a little bit, who has a little social knowledge, a little bit of perspective. You don't do it just because everybody else is doing it. You don't just jump in and say, "Oh yeah, I'm going to play, flaming lava hopscotch." You see the other kids playing it. You say, "Oh yeah, look at their feet's on fire." That was all charred. It's 15-degree burns over there. Yeah, I'm not going to play that. So I'm just saying you can say like, oh, well, how can you possibly imagine this happening? It's already happening in the world, as pointed out. All the civilized countries have declining population, okay? Their native population is in decline. And the only thing keeping any growth in population is the fact that they've got some notion that, oh, the poor other people in the world don't have any place to live. They're living in cardboard boxes and, we'll import them. And they can turn our country into a shithole like they turned their own country into a shithole, and that wasn't why we're living in a cardboard box. So, we'll just re-import all the dumbness, the religious ideas, the silly notions, the people that are just completely unproductive, and think, yeah, that'll work. We'll win. No, you're not going to win. It's not a solution to the problem, and it's not about caring. It's about the pragmatism of caring. Again, these are always tough decisions, right? I mean, do you attack malaria by attacking the symptoms, that is, giving people nets and trying to do whatever you can to save the people that exist now? Or do you invest the resources in a cure in the hope that, if you really pump resources into it, you can actually accomplish the task? They could have done this in the war. They could have just, the Nazis essentially said, let's not spend money on a nuclear bomb and let's spend money on our Tiger tanks and stuff. We had the opposite investment, and obviously that was to some advantage. I think we implemented the advantage poorly, but regardless. There's a strategy and there's probabilities and all of that stuff, and none of it's going to be easy. But none of it's even being talked about in terms of there is no social science. There's no place where these issues are broken down into all their little pieces to figure out, what's the best choice. There's no real effort to do it in any kind of logical way. It's just a bunch of people with unrealistic daydreams about how, well, if we say if we pray, we can fix it. Kind of almost silly optimism about how, well, if we just have to want it not to exist and it'll go away, if we all want it enough. But yeah, it's like, look, the welfare thing, healthcare thing, people have these unrealistic expectations that everybody can have everything, and it doesn't matter that it's insanely expensive. Yeah, no, that part doesn't matter. It does matter. You have to figure out where you're going to devote the resources and how to, you're trying to cure the disease. You're not trying to just sit there and treat symptoms forever. So, yeah, you see some people starving and you say, well, these poor people, it wasn't their fault they're in this condition. It's certainly not their kids' faults. We have to save them. We have to rescue them. But if you rescue them on the cheap, that is, you allow the crazy parents to raise the kids and turn them into crazy kids, then you're just exponentially creating more problem the next year. Obviously it won't be in 1 year, but, the next decade you're going to have twice as many people starving because you haven't cured the disease, and you just basically fed the disease by feeding the carriers of the disease. You have to understand that the poor people have a kind of plague, okay, the plague of poverty. and they can spread it. They're quite capable of spreading the disease of their bad habits and giving other people their bad habits. And those habits are the things that create the problem in the first place. So, I mean, this is a social science, and it gets, immediately into all kinds of, accusations that you're a hater of some kind, or a bigot, or some other bullshit. And there's nothing to do with it. It has to do with just recognizing that the current system isn't sustainable, that this isn't going to work. You're feeding the wrong thing. So if it wasn't for, people who have nice intentions but have no political knowledge and no social science knowledge about what the implications of what you're doing is, then you have the bad result. And I could argue the same thing happened with the feral cat kind of argument. I've made it over and over, but it's a good subject, because it's an example of how there's no, you can't even broach the correct answer because of these taboos, in terms of thinking that you're doing something hostile to something because you end the disease. Like you put, Typhoid Mary, and you oblige her no longer to be a cook, and she can't do this and she can't do that. And it's a terrible oppression, but there's no solution outside of considering all of the options you have. You have to consider them all. And the fact is if you do go through it and you do sit there and spend enough time pondering it, you realize, that's the problem with life. There are no easy answers. The answers all have to be paid for. You got to pay a price to get anywhere. The whole thing is a very expensive game to play. They're real problems, and they take real solutions. Okay, wishing doesn't fix it, and hoping doesn't fix it. So like with the feral cats, they spend all of this money, thousands of dollars per animal comes out to capture them and release them, just so they can get run over in 3 weeks. I mean, so you spend $1,000 on a cat because I'm saving it, I'm preserving its wonderful life, and it gets run over in 3 weeks. I mean, there's no logic to this. You're not saving them from their harsh termination. They're going to be harshly terminated, and you're not protecting them from any of that. It's just totally wasteful. If you want to prevent the harshness, then you have to do it with, some better form of empathy. And maybe the empathy is in the form of realizing the cat really isn't that invested, okay? When it goes to sleep at night, it's not really worried if it doesn't wake up again. This isn't a terrible worry for a cat, because, cats they don't have agenda in their life. They don't have something to prove. They don't have any of that kind of stuff. They're just living moment to moment, trying to find some comfortable pillow to sleep on, something decent to eat, some not to be harassed by the other cats. They're just trying to evade bullies and do these simple things. You're not doing them any favor by throwing them back out of there and just saying, well, now you can do it without your balls. And it's just, I'm just saying this, all these resources devoted to the wrong answer. And if you devoted those same resources to really just, let's clean it up, let's prevent it, let's cure the disease, let's stop having animals being recklessly created and then left in the environment. And then we can solve all of this unnecessary suffering. Look, again, it's real solutions, and the ones that are so obvious, again, with the human condition and how much money is wasted on humans that have no value, in the sense that there's old people who have no interest in perpetuating their existence, and our wonderful empathetic society says you must live because dying would be just horrible, even though they don't think so. And so we spend money on people who don't even want to live. It's so impractical and so silly and so stupid that we have this notion that we're doing something in their best interest when we're not even listening to what they want. We don't care. I say we. Obviously, this gets into this whole religious thing, and so on one subject it's the lefties who are ruining the game, and then the next subject it's the righties who are ruining the game. So there's no good game to be played in this environment where both sides are denying the truth, and evading it, and not taking any responsibility for what right answers are going to look like, which is you're going to have to do a lot of work. You're going to have to write stuff on the board and calculate and figure out and think about the permutations and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, back to the original imagining the the anti-natalist victory. I can imagine it. Okay, I can imagine a world where the civilized countries realize that they can't keep just importing a bunch of diversity and anti-culture. That's going to degrade the quality of life. It's going to turn them into an idiocracy of sorts. It's not doing that, getting the best potential out of people thing. It's not doing any of that stuff. You're not building a better society that way by using these faulty kind of not too good bricks. Bricks that weren't cooked quite right in another country, and then you're going to import them and try to build your civilization out of these bricks that aren't quite cured. They didn't have the benefits of your civilization. And one of the benefits is your culture, and the knowledge that's built into culture. You could argue this sort of goes back to religion, and the whole Jewish traditions, that were so many of the rules from God were basically just pragmatic, practical things you could do. Washing your hands or different things like that. They were just very practical things. Okay, things that worked. And that's what a culture can be made out of, is things and ideas and notions that work. And part of the cultures that work are, this idea of being secular, and not allowing fanaticism and other kinds of notions to pollute everything, and intolerance and all this kind of stuff, and having the obligation to do the free speaking thing and talk things out and all that kind of crap. And other cultures don't have any of that stuff. They just have, we're going to convert all of you or you're going to die. God says so. That's not the kind of brick you want to be building your society out of. And so if you keep importing, those bricks, yes, your society, your culture will crumble. Anyway, but the point is, like I said, we're winning, in the sense we have a huge head start, we didn't earn it anyway. I mean, it wasn't the anti-natalist argument, did not make kids a pain in the ass. They did not make raising children tedious and gross, at least to me, right? I mean, I alluded to it before. I mean, it's so anti the Romeo and Juliet romantic notions of what even a relationship with somebody would be. Your relationship becomes these things you made, and now how you manage the things you made. And so the relationship is lost and gone, and all it becomes is some kind of interdependency structure of family, and keeping your family together. You're just knitting, a ball and chain, to keep everything intact, and even that whole conversation. I mean, just the thinness of how thick, people think, how deep they think is so superficial. All these people with their racism and their nepotism, they think the game is a family game, and we're all supposed to wear our family tags. It's all about what family you're from. I mean, it's just, it's so bad. And we're not supposed to do any of that. Judge an individual by the content of their behavior, you could say. Even better than their character, I guess, would be their behavior. But yeah, we shouldn't be putting people in jail for their thought crimes. But anyway, so the fact is the vision of winning the anti-natalist war is really easy when you just say, well, if they got rid of immigration and installed a couple of policies worldwide where UN food, which a lot of these countries, these the countries with the shoddy bricks, um, we can make them cook their bricks better. We can force them to be civilized because they are dependent on the world to feed them, essentially. And so people just apply a little bit of extortion. You just like the welfare thing. If you pay people not to have kids, poor people, you'll save so much more money than if you pay them when they have kids. So if you pay them more not to, then you'll have more not tos, and that's what you want. And the same thing in the world is if you pay countries, you say, look, we'll give you more UN food. We'll give you 50% off. Okay, real bargain. If you install some sort of rational policy that keeps people who have no money in your country from having 10 kids, because it's, number one, it's terribly cruel. I mean, it's probably worse than cockfighting or dog fighting is poor people having kids they can't take care of. That's just gross as a behavior. And it's dangerous for the rest of the world. This disease, you're festering of irresponsibility. And so, the fact is the civilized countries can civilize the rest of the world. They just have to actually want to do that on purpose. They're not going to do it by accident. It's not going to happen by, well, we invaded their country and exploited their population with cheap wages and did this and did that. And so that was our cultural influences, was to go to their country and exploit the fuck out of it. Sort of like the English going into India. They fixed a couple of things, but mostly all they did was steal. And, that's the wrong attitude. So if you really care and you want to fix it, and you want the side benefit of not having that disease threaten to spread, the cholera spread into your country, then these are the things you do. Now, unfortunately, again, it just becomes this, the difference between behavior and intent, and real motivation, real character, right? So, real character would be that everybody does it because they want to help other sentient beings in trouble. But then the pragmatic argument is that, no, there's going to be plenty of people who just want to do it because they want to preserve their way of life. They really don't care about the other people. But the point is those two can become allies. But yeah, I can't say I think it's great that those two would be allies. It would be nice if people did the right thing for the right reasons. And, that would all be very good. But yeah, practically, yeah. But I can't imagine it. I'm just saying I can't imagine that everybody's given the benefit of understanding reality and understanding that we live in a world run by the biosphere is at the core of it, in evolution, and then we have our psychology has all of these defects in it because of what we're evolved to do. And we are selfish, and we are nepotistic, and we are racist, and we are all these things, and we got to fight against that kind of stuff and mitigate against our bad character, our innately bad character. But it's really easy to do. Because all you do is say it, right? All somebody has to do is say the words, and other people say, oh yeah, well, I can't really argue with that. It's like that Martin Luther King moment, right? Martin Luther King might be useless, might be an asshole, might be lots of things, but the words that came out are just the words. Maybe somebody else said them first. Judge a man based on the content of his character, not the color of his skin. And you could say that by, not whether he's Jewish or not whether he's this or that. You can put lots of things in there. That this whole idea of content of character would be an important concept. And any guy who has any kind of fairness notions of playing a good game, I want to win playing the game the way the game's supposed to be played. I don't want to find some way you tunnel under the board game. I have little dice that are cheat dice. I want to play the game with cheat dice. Most people, I think, want to win a real victory. They want real solutions. They want to do real good stuff. They don't want to fake good stuff. They don't want to. They don't want to. Well, obviously there are people who just don't care, and that's a problem. And I don't know where they exactly come from. They do hatch in this country. They do seem to take the same cultural influences I've gotten in my life. They see Jeopardy on TV, and oh, that's interesting. You learn smart stuff. They see other stuff and other stuff, but somehow they think the game is just steal as much as you can. And somehow in all of these influences, Father Knows Best, Leave It to Beaver, all this little bullshit, somehow they didn't get the message that, no, your life really isn't about just stealing stuff. What's in it for you? It's a little more complicated. It is a game with lots of other players in it, and it'd be nice if nobody loses too much and nobody wins too much, and you keep everything under a little bit of control. So you don't have people walking away truly damaged. Have a civil game to play. A game that really doesn't kill any of the players. None of the spectators get killed. Everybody can just, keep it within some sort of realm of outrageousness. But there are just people who just can't see it any other way than me, 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 me. And I guess it doesn't matter how many words you speak at them, they're just not going to be effective in breaking down that notion that my game is the only good game. And so whatever I want is important, and whatever they want can't mean anything. All right. So the point I'm trying to get to is that, I know people say, oh, this is just so difficult and all this stuff, but we're right on the cusp of it, in the sense that now the politics is swinging in all kinds of directions, and yes, the fanatics are gone crazy, and they feel a real liberty to go out and actually kill each other. I mean, we're right there, right? I mean, when you see people who are perfectly comfortable on live TV, breaking into the United States Senate, to hang the vice president, wow, that's not a very safe place to live, is it? I mean, if they're willing to do that, what are they willing to do to their next door neighbor's water pipes or something? What are they willing to, what kind of pills are they willing to throw, poison pills, or do, you just got to know that, ooh, this is not a good thing. This is a more dangerous world we're moving into. In terms of what kind of, what next is, what building is going to be the next one to, come tumbling down, from our own interior civil war. And they've done it in the past, kind of thing. I mean, it's, and nobody's really taking any of that seriously. I mean, there's people actually, just playing with the idea of threatening other people's security, and they think it's part of their fun. It's part of the fun. It's threats. Sad. It's just a piece of one of the obstacles to what we really should be doing, which is the people who really don't have this whole philosophy thing. Well, yeah, pick your good fighters and let's have a good philosophical fight. But none of that can happen in a political system that just keeps electing the same liars and cheaters and thieves, because you don't have a system that allows people to actually be represented, where people are actually allowed to vote for an honest man, because they can find one in another state and they can vote for him, that kind of thing. So until we fix the democracy, the cultural conversation on the highest levels is not going to be a good conversation. And again, it should be an argument. It really shouldn't be. It's not like we have to be polite. It's just that we shouldn't be killing each other in the middle of the argument. All right. So the point is we're winning in the sense that the civilized world already voluntarily is invested in extermination. Okay, that's exactly where they go. As soon as they go below that to 2.2 kids a couple, they're already heading right for the wall of extermination. That's exactly how you become extinct. So they're doing exactly the right thing. And it's just the rest of the world that's out of control. And as stated, we can implement rewards and punishments as civilized countries to civilize the rest of the world. So if we go into our interactions with them looking for something other than cheap oil or exploiting their labor force or all this other stuff that we keep doing, which is what do we get out of it, instead invest in their future and our future. It's a mutual future, it's a shared future. Then this can be understood to be a winning strategy. Because once you educate people, the fact is, educated people don't find the job of parent all that interesting. It's just, I think it's just a truth. They have a lot more interesting things to do. And, you know, I mean, maybe they're not good, interesting things. Like they're just going to find, oh, I'd like to have myself a, you know, a little hooker on the side. You know, I set her up in an apartment and have another second life that doesn't have anything to do with that damn bitch. But maybe they wouldn't even think that way, right? If they don't have kids, they probably wouldn't be running from the first wife. You know, lots of things like, you know, lots of things would change. I'm just saying that clearly people are not in any way dependent on having kids. It's not fundamental to the function of a human being. Just kind of a truth. Especially, I would say, for the 50% of the males. I really don't, you know, that one's harder for me to see personally, just because, you know, I can't relate to it, you know, in any practical matter. Yeah. Well, anyway, so I'll take a little pause here and be back. Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm back. Sorry. Doesn't say anything like overtly to tell me, oh yes, you're recording again. So you have to sort of figure it out. Anyway, so there were a couple of other stupid comments. I mean, not that there weren't some good comments. Sorry, I'm not, you know, trying to be prejudiced. Just using these as examples. So, you know, this guy calls himself Ghost Machine. You know, his name's in all caps. He's an important fella. But it just illustrates, like, you know, you really can't have a conversation with people who don't understand even the function of conversation, the function of argument, you know, where you have to establish some sort of working tools, premises, ideas. And then you're going to draw the picture with those ideas and show how the ideas fit together. Like there's the poor little kitties, you know, there's the kittens getting run over, there's these circumstances, and you're going to put all the circumstances together and say, see, you need a solution that doesn't make any more kittens that get run over. You know, you need a solution that doesn't mean the problem's worse a year from now or 2 years from now. You need a solution that really works. You know, and you have to be able to show those mechanics by using the premises and moving them around. So anyway, you know, these brains that really aren't functioning, like people who think have this hugely inflated perception, you know, of their own functionality and how well they're seeing and how well they're manipulating the world, and yet they can't show you any evidence of this. So I mean, this guy who leaves 2 comments, okay, you know, his channel is, you know, best of pole dancing. So he's going to show me or try to tell me that I'm not getting it right because he can see what really matters. And there's no evidence he sees anything that really matters. There's every bit of evidence that he's just a trivial, narcissistic douche. But anyway, everything you say is the half part of wisdom. So that almost sounds like a Ken Wheeler line. But anyway, just, you know, pretty funny. It has no real content, therefore it just comes back to the same things. Those are just words you put together. There's no evidence that you have a vision, that you even have any qualifications to even judge these things. So again, this is like the people who are saying, you know, they know what smart is when they hear it. Huh? Yeah, they don't have to be smart to know what smart is. Well, come on. It says there's a certain, you know, I've said in the past that yes, I think you should be able to convince idiots of the right answer, because the right answer will always look better than the wrong answer. You should be able to draw the picture and show them that the right answer works and the wrong answer doesn't work. Anyway, are you really any more genius? So it's totally irrelevant whether I am or am not. They're arguments. You have to deconstruct the arguments. Deconstructing the person making the arguments is wasted time. All right, it just can't possibly matter. All right, then an average depression. So, and again, so this whole idea that depression is somehow an unnatural response to a circumstance. So if we were literally living on a lifeboat where every day you had to watch somebody die and get thrown overboard, and like every day, and you had to throw one overboard just because you didn't have enough food. So you had to take somebody who wasn't dead and you had to throw them overboard every day, and you found that a little depressing. What, you're crazy? You're looking at it the wrong way. It's really fun we're having. So we know we live in a world that's very cruel and very, lots of tragedies happen. And if you know any people, I know a very limited number of people, I have to admit. I interact with very few, but I do know maybe 10 people. And the fact is, this stuff is happening to one of those 10 people all the time. Something not too pleasant. So even in your smallest world, there's always these sad stories. And then you can watch a sad story. You can just be, floating around on YouTube clicking buttons, and you'll hit a button and it's a sad story right in your face. And your reaction is, well, that's part of the fun. Yeah. So I don't mind. You can call me a depressive. You can call me lots of names, but you haven't demonstrated that any of my reactions to the realities in the world are in any way inappropriate or nonsensical. That somehow there's not logical continuity between the fact that I care about my welfare and understand how important it is I don't suffer, and I can also understand how important it is that other people don't suffer. And that when they're suffering, it's essentially an attack against my welfare. It's basically saying, you're next. You're next. You're next. And I'm reacting to that by saying, oh shit, I don't want to be next. So I don't know. You just say, what's the point of YouTube's little thumbs up? And there's 7 thumbs up for a pile of shit. A pile of vacuous shit. And you just say, what? Those aren't real, right? So anyway, just a joke. So any silly person could just string together some ad hominem bullshit nonsense, and they think they've won the argument. So again, it's like when you rationally explain how, of all the taxes that we could apply in the universe, right? We could tax people for going to work every day. We could tax people for let me think of some. We could tax them for making money on granddaddy's investment capital. We could tax that, or we could tax something like inheritance. Which one is the most harmless? The one that can't possibly hurt our economy, the one that creates the most earnings from legitimate productive work. Which one incentivizes work and productivity, and which one, it creates the best incentives? Well, obviously the inheritance tax, right? And that's the one they'll call the death tax, and it's the worst possible tax in the universe. No, that's the best possible tax in the universe. That's the one that's going to get you the most benefits and the least harm, in any legitimate word, any legitimate definition of harm. And again, even if you say, well, we won't tax it until it gets to like $2 million, it's still not enough. I'm just saying, so these are just idiots. But anyway, people just, so there's all these critics out there that say your answer sucks, and they provide nothing. Not even a clue to what their answer is. None whatsoever. They don't have a single thing to say about what they would replace your bad idea with. Yeah, amazing. All right, how can you truly be rational when you are afraid of wisdom, Gary? So you're just saying, what is the use of this? Even if this guy had a philosophy of some kind, what's the point of just implying that it exists? Why don't you articulate it somewhere, what your wisdom is? What's your grand wisdom? The watcher of the pole dancer? Please, watcher of the pole dancer, enlighten me. What's your great wisdom? Just too funny. So yeah, since I'm here, I don't think I can delete them because I'm not signed into that channel, but they really do deserve to be deleted. It's just so stupid. Okay. Oh, here's a dude thing. I just love that. Oh, that's this dude. Okay. That was the dude in the video. The duders. One is too many. The antinatalist anthem. I suppose Lots of things. Get real can be the anthem because, right, the whole thing is just about fables, telling little silly stories. Again, if you told the real story of Romeo and Juliet, and then 1 year later they got the bratty kid, whining and crying, and then 5 years later they got 3 kids, one of them's retarded, he has to go to work every day, yeah, that's hell. Okay, yeah, that's hell. All right. So I don't know if there's. Oh yeah, it was Valentine's Day. I probably should have talked about, the fairy tale notions of Prince Charming and the whole thing, and happily ever after, and all the just the absolute bullshit that the human race is running on in terms of the propaganda selling the life story as some wonderful thing. So I mean, okay, so you can just go through videos why Jakarta is sinking. Well, that's not good, right? It's sinking. That's not good. There's probably a bunch of people living on it. The whole global warming thing is sort of a reality. I mean, the sea levels are going to rise, and there's a lot of people living where they shouldn't be living, and no plan. We'll just wait until there's the huge catastrophe, and then we'll spend an obscene amount of money to clean up a mess that should never existed. It's like the whole New Orleans things. I mean, just $100 billion, whatever the hugely expensive cleaning up a mess that should never exist in the first place because we really shouldn't be living 10 feet below sea level. Not a good idea. Anyway, I mean, maybe I'll just leave it at that. Didn't make any videos this week. I planned to, but I just didn't. Get caught up in my other projects and whatnot. So I'll try to be more participatory in the future. And again, I really have to do this in some sort of, clinical way. I really hate the idea of having to be, structured and all of that crap because, well, first it's work. And it does seem, it takes away from the fact that this should be something that human beings can argue in some kind of on the subject rational way. But as I have found, people are belligerently clinging to their notions. They have notions and they cling to those notions. And if you threaten those notions, there are some fundamental notions, whether it is religiosity or their spirituality or just their notion of their own, I'm more important than everybody else, so don't keep making arguments about how other people are important because they're not important because I'm important. I mean, whatever it is, there's obviously these trigger buttons that just blow people up, and they just can't have the conversation because it's a trigger, and just not possible for you to disgrace or diminish or say something bad about their football team, and it comes down to something that trivial most of the time. All right, so maybe I'll surrender, call it a video. Not exactly what it should be, and I'll work on that. Yeah, better luck next time, we'll say. Not a top tenner and such. So, till the next time, when I might actually have a subject. I just came into this just a little too tired, blah blah blah. It's winter, blah blah, and lots of I just don't have the right attitude. My bad. I'll work on it. So anyway, so I'll just call it a video. Sorry to have marginalized the value of your time by producing something of inferior quality. Sorry. Do better next time. It's not a promise, though. It's not a contract. I'm not making a legal contract. I can't guarantee anything. So you just get what you get. That's why it's free. Because it just doesn't come with a warranty. So, that's all I got. Till next time and such and so forth. We can just do better. It's just not hard to understand how you do a couple of things in the right order, and it works. You can get from here to there. You just it's not that complicated. So till next time, such. I mean, we landed on the moon. Lots of steps to do that, and we mastered it. We did it. So, decommissioning, the living parasite on planet Earth. It's not going to be any more difficult than landing on the moon. So anyway, it's a lot easier, really. Yeah, you just stop making it, and it goes away. Yeah. All right. Till next time and such.